This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's that time of the year. We are literally weeks away, and it can't get any closer at this point, right? The draft is so close that it's kind of freaking annoying. But we're going to talk about the draft. We're going to try to talk about some players maybe we haven't covered in this market as much, with my guy, JP Acosta, in the building. What's good, JP, man? How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm really, we got 17 days left until the NFL draft. Well, now 16 days left until the NFL draft. Night one opens, and it's going to feel like it's going to go by super fast. I already know it. We're at the 7th of April already, and now it's just like we're just waiting because I'm done. I'm ready to be done with anonymous scouts. I'm ready to be done with quotes. I'm ready to be done with I'm ready to be done with it all. And let's just get to the day.
Yeah. This is, I think I put this out on Twitter where I'm like, the period after the combine and then 2 weeks before the draft is where you just hear the most I'm bored shit come out. And I'm convinced that because these GMs and the front office members, maybe not the GMs, because they're always trying to work some shit, but the people who work underneath those GMs, they're just as bored as we are. They went to all the pro days. Pro days are over, right? So it's for the most part, the pro days are over. You're really just doing local combines,
top 30 visits,
which, it's you're not really involved in that if you're the assistant. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's they're bored too. And they're probably the Dan Orlovsky, Mendoza thing where I'm pretty sure some GM group text had a fucking ball getting him to go on national TV and say that, because these are just people just like us, and they're not that different. So yeah, I imagine the boredom is why we hear half the stuff we hear about the draft at this time. But you actually have released an article under CBS Sports. Make sure you guys check it out, where you talk about some of your favorite players in the draft this year. Wanted to bring you on, do a whole segment on just the guys that you like in this draft. First guy I want to talk about, you mentioned, is Chris Bell, because you had an interesting comp for Chris Bell.
I did. I normally, when people ask me about comps, I normally don't like doing them because I think it sets unfair expectations for a player. But I like doing based on play style and not what the player is going to be. The comp that I have for Chris Bell play style wise is he's very similar to AJ Brown. And I know that we've been burned before by the AJ Brown comps, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, the whole But Chris Bell, before he tore his ACL in November, was going to be a first round draft pick. Because you don't find that many guys that are 6'2" or almost 6'2", 220 pounds, and run a 4.3. I think the biggest example of what Chris Bell can be at the NFL level right now is the game against Miami, where he had 2 touchdowns, and both of them were on shallow crossers, where he's outrunning everybody on the field. It's crazy that a guy that big, that strong, that fast is just outrunning people at his size. But he also has an expanding game on the outside. I do think he's gotten off the press a lot better. He got a lot better as the season went on at Louisville, and they gave him the ball in a lot of different ways, a lot of screens, jump balls, crossing routes, comebacks. I think that, again, he could use a little more nuance at the top of his routes and a little more route manipulation. But when you're that big, that strong, that fast, I'm going to believe in you, and I'm going to take a lot of chances.
Where would he be in this draft class if he did not have the ACL injury? Do you think he would still be hovering around that mid-teens, or would he be the one wide receiver that goes between the top 3 in this year's class, which is Mekhi Lemon, it's Cardell Tate and Jordan Tyson, and then the Denzel Boston? Which category would you put him in if he never had that ACL injury?
I would put him in that second group of receivers. So, you have the top 3 of Tight, Tace, and Lemon. And then you have the next group of Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr., Denzel Boston. Right now, I actually have Chris Bell as my 7th highest graded receiver. He's got a second round grade from me right now because of the injury. But if he didn't get injured, I do think he would be sort of a back end of the first round kind of player. I think a team like Miami at 30 would be really fun for what they want to do. And initially, before they traded the pick, I thought Denver would be a really nice spot for him in terms of the explosiveness that he can offer. But I thought before injury he was going to be towards the back end of the first round. But I think getting him in the second round or third round because of the injury is going to be really, really nice value.
Um, all right, let's move to Oscar Delp, tight end out of Georgia. He is a interesting evaluation because I don't think a lot of people know exactly what to do with Oscar Delp because he didn't like you look for the production, it's not there. And the target share, right? Like that wasn't there. But then you look at his quarterback situation while he was there. Was he there for the first year of like Carson Beck? Maybe I think he had to have been.
He was,
and then he had to deal with like 2 years of Stenson Bennett, which like for whatever reason Stenson favored other targets while he was there at Georgia.
So Carson Beck is going to be not Carson Beck, Oscar Delp. Excuse me. one of the most fascinating prospects in this draft class. Oscar Delp, over the course of his college career, had 70 receptions over 4 years. For comparison, Tyler Warren had 164 in his final year at Penn State. Like this is a historic like outlier when it comes to production. But I think at the tight end spot, teams are starting to realize more that athletic profile means more than production at the college level. I could take a great athlete and someone who's that size that can move and teach them how to play tight end. But I do think Oscar Delp, who was the former number one overall recruit at the tight end spot in high school, ran between 4.48 and 4.5 at the pro day at Georgia. Mm-hmm. So he's got the straight line speed, and that shows up on tape. But where Oscar Delp wins is that he's one of the few tight ends in this draft class that can handle inline blocking capabilities and actually be a factor in the receiving game. I think he's going to be a lot better of a pro than a college player just because like he's going to have a quarterback that can put the ball in his area code.
Yeah. You talk about like the athletic ability in the article there. What round range do you think like Delp goes in?
So I think it's fascinating because this tight end class after Kenyon Sadiq, tight end 2 is relatively wide open. I have Oscar Delp as tight end 2. Mm-hmm. I think he's more of a third round guy just because of lack of production. But again, like a tight end that's 6'4", 240 or 6'5", 240 who can run a 4.48 probably going to get drafted earlier. But I do think like third round is really where the sweet spot for him is.
Third round.
Yeah.
He is one of those interesting ones because if you do any mock draft machine, they're like, oh, you can get Oscar Delp in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round draft. But him and was it the corner out of NC State where I'm like, no way he goes as low as like
Devin Marshall.
Yeah, these mock draft machines go. I watched Devin Marshall at the East West Shrine game. He was really good. Like, who are those players like on the top of your head where you're like when you see where these mock draft machines are, which like a lot of the hardcore draft fans are gonna go in those areas where the mock draft machine are. Who do you think is the most overvalued in mock draft machines and undervalued in mock draft machines?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm going to start with the undervalued guys. The first one, I say undervalued, I still think he's going to be a first rounder, but I think Keldrick Falk is becoming very undervalued in this draft class. He's one of the youngest players in this class and is already one of, if not, I would say he and Zion Young are two of the best run defenders in this class at the edge spot. But he also has the length, he has the fluidity, and I think he has potential to be a very good pass rusher, either inside or outside. I think Auburn tried to do a lot of stuff with him. They played him at 4-eye, they played him out wide. They were trying to find something good for him to do, but at the NFL level, with how much teams are getting bigger and wanting to run the football, having a guy like Keldrick Falk on the field is going to immediately help raise your run defense, and you can teach the guy how to rush the passer because he has that athletic potential. Another guy that I think is going to be a little more undervalued is Keyshawn Elliott, linebacker from Arizona State. With linebacker, I think the ceiling is how you can affect third downs, either through coverage or through blitzing. Keyshawn Elliott is more of a blitzer. I think he's going to be able to really win on design stuff. He can be a pick player for pass rush games. You can have him mugged up. I think he's really instinctive around the ball. His coverage skills are just very limited. And that's sort of what Arizona State did not want him to be. And then another guy that I think is going to be really undervalued is Hezekiah Masses, corner from Cal. Cal just produces a lot of really great DBs. Noel Williams was a guy last year, third round pick, is going to start for Kansas City this upcoming season because he's just really talented and press. And Hezekiah Masses, despite being a little thinner, is a guy who wins in press. He's feisty at the catch point. I think he's getting really undervalued. Now, when it comes to overvalued, um, it's tough because there's got to be like with first round guys, like 32 guys are going to get picked anyway. But I'm not as high on Dylan Thieneman as others. I don't think he's a. I've seen like mocks with him at 10 to Cincinnati, and I'm just like, no, not like that.
To be
Not
fair,
that high.
that is the exact kind of thing Cincinnati would do. Like
If
that is.
if they chose Thieneman over Caleb Downs at 10, when Caleb Downs played right in their backyard,
Mm-hmm.
they deserve everything that they have coming to them. But I just think Thieneman is a good player. I just don't think he's a first rounder. He's got really nice footwork. I think he's obviously very fast, and he did a lot of different things at between Oregon and Purdue. But he's not a man coverage guy. He's not going to be a guy you want matching in the slot. And he got mixed up by Mekhi Lemon in the slot, which Mekhi Lemon is my wide receiver one. But of course, like when you're drafting a guy first round, you want to see a little more competitiveness in man coverage out of the slot. You want to see a little more versatility. But I don't think Thieneman does that. I think he is a true post safety. And I think that that's more of a maybe like day two guy. Now, if you want to draft him like late round one, I can get that's a little more palatable for me, but I'm not drafting him top 10. Another guy that I think is a little overvalued in this draft class. I'm going to say Akeem Mesidor from Miami. And this isn't even accounting for the fact that he is an older prospect, which I had a very sobering moment when we talk about how old Akeem Mesidor is. He's the same age as me. So this is like the first time that a prospect is like considered old and that he's my age. And I'm like, oh, well, what does that mean for me now? So hold on, guys. Let's stop calling him like a senior citizen. But I think he just doesn't have a lot of power to his game. And he's also very stiff. So how do you play a designated pass rusher with no power to his game? He's an older prospect, and he doesn't have a lot of fluidity when it comes to bending the corner. And I think he's stiff. So I wouldn't pick him in round one. He's more of a round two guy to me. Because if you want to compare him to guys like R. Mason Thomas, who I think is very undervalued, um, Cassius Howell, Zion Young, I think they offer things that Mesidor doesn't do as well.
If you could have any of your gems land on the Cleveland Browns, which one of those guys would make the most sense for Cleveland, and where do you think they would get picked?
Chris Bell and Oscar Delp are the two guys that I think of immediately when it comes to Browns targets. And Delp, especially because he has familiarity with Todd Monken. And I think that he offers so much when it comes to the difference between he and Harold Fannin. Fannin is more of a yards after the catch guy at tight end. Delp is more of a straight line fast. You want him moving on crossers, overs, go routes. He is straight line fast. He's also a very good inline blocker. You could do a lot of stuff in 12 personnel, which is what the Ravens sort of majored in. It's what Todd Monken has majored in since being at Georgia. So I think Delp would make a lot of sense if he's there at 70. I think that's the pick that the Browns have. I think 70 would be a nice spot for him. Chris Bell, I think, would be so cool in that offense. I think he would provide such a nice boost of energy and some explosiveness while also being a little bit bigger of a receiver. I think the Browns have a lot of guys outside of Cedric Tillman who are a little bit smaller, a little shiftier. I think they're going to try and go away from the smaller, shifty types and actually go for a bigger body receiver because like you need somebody to to box out, like it's sort of like when you have a basketball team and you've built it all out of like 6'4" to 6'6" guys. And it's like, that's really cool. But when you need to box out the 7-footer, like you don't have another 7-footer that can match it. And in this case, like the Browns don't have that 7-footer or the big, tall, fast guy. I think Cedric Tillman could be that, but I think he's very limited in ways Chris Bell isn't.
Yeah, as far as like availability goes, right? I think that's the big thing that the Browns have to factor. Like the two guys that they could get that would fit that need for them, right? Not Makai Lemon, but it would be they have Tillman on the roster, and then it would be Jordan Tyson, right? But Chris Bell, you can factor him in there as well, but it's like one's coming off an ACL injury, the other one's coming off an ACL and now a hamstring injury, and then Cedric Tillman's never available, right? Like I think that is the question. It feels like if you have those questions, you're much more comfortable taking those at the back end of the first round with your extra pick, or potentially, in the second round. I don't know if any of those guys make it to 39. I feel like that's a long journey for some of these guys to make it down there. Like maybe Bell makes it to 39, but I think you probably got to jump ahead of somebody to probably get Bell in the second round. I think he probably goes pretty early in day 2. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Browns handle their wide receiver issues, because if we look at like pass catchers, right? Because like I think sometimes we get into this, especially like as Browns fans, we get into this narrow vacuum of like only looking at the wide receivers. But tight ends have been incredibly productive for the Cleveland Browns over the last 4 or 5 years. Harold Fannin was the leading receiver on the team last year, right? They're going to want to factor in some use of Dylan Sampson as a wide receiver in some way, right? Like, so there's going to be targets for that. If you draft Delp, there's got to be targets for Delp. There's got to be targets for Fannin. And then Jerry Jeudy's going to have some targets there as well, right? So, like, if we're looking at, like, who's going to be able to be productive this year, we're talking about maybe room for one more player targets-wise, because, like, the Browns, if things go right, aren't going to want to be throwing the ball a ton. And we're probably looking at, a room that right now, what you can predict off the quarterback situation. I think this is being generous, but people are going to say I'm being mean here. Probably about 3,500 yards of receiving yard production in this, like, that you can factor in with this quarterback room. Maybe a ceiling of 3,800 yards, and I think that's generous. I think it's a very generous ceiling.
I'll say you're being very generous.
Like that's leaving room for like everything going absolutely right. It's like probably a 3,800 yards of receiving yards to grab out there in this room. So it's like, I wonder how much of an emphasis they have versus like the fans have on like getting another wide receiver that could get 70 targets or, 70 to 100 targets, when they might not anticipate there's going to be that much on the share board for them.
Well, I also think when you look at the Browns depth chart at receiver, like that's also what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Because if you want to major in 12 personnel, like Jerry Jeudy is not like, I don't think Jerry Jeudy's stopping anyone from drafting a receiver. And like I said, Cedric Tillman can't stay healthy, but neither of those guys are like superb blockers. And then behind them, you have Isaiah Bond, Tylan Wallace, like Malachi Corley, like, and all of them are all the same build. They're the same body types. So I think even if you don't want a guy like Chris Bell, and I think he might be there past 39 again because of the ACL injury, but like you just need somebody with a little bit of height, weight, speed just to try and create some explosives or give them some more opportunities to open up areas in the middle of the field for Harold Fannin, for whatever tight end they have after that. Because like this past season, Browns quarterbacks combined for 2,800 passing yards. I was like,
What?
You're correct. Like 3,800 is very generous.
Very generous.
We're being very generous. I would say like 35 is like, that's like great.
35 might be the max. 35 might be the max. Like,
yeah. But you just need somebody, you need a room with layers. And I don't think the Browns have the layering in the offense to really highlight Harold Fannin. So I think if they want to continue to do that, they need somebody who can sort of be their floor spacer.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I hope that they do get a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. I'm just wondering, like, there's always like ebbs and flows to a team's team building strategy that you don't really get until draft day. And sometimes the Browns do tend to make these bets of like, oh, we're not going to use that much, so we're not going to invest there. And it doesn't work out sometimes, right? Like the offensive line is like a critical example of like, oh, the Browns not putting anything there because they don't anticipate needing it. And then boom, big problem pops up. So I really do wonder how aggressive they're going to be and if they think that next year's wide receiver class is going to be like significantly better to the point to where they're like, if we use the first round on one guy this year, we're probably getting a high 2. Next year, they might feel like there's a better chance of getting a number 1 type guy. Hey, let me talk to you about my sponsor for this year, PrizePicks. It's a fun way to win cash while you're watching your favorite teams. Forget complex betting rules. Their app is designed to be incredibly easy to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Speaking of, here are my picks for this upcoming NFL season. They have Myles Garrett at 14 sacks here. I think he will get more than 14 sacks. Joe Burrow at 3,875 passing yards. I think he'll be a 4,000-yard passer. I'm going to go with more. They have Derrick Henry at 1,224 yards. I'm going to go less than that. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You can follow me on the app at KWEN_C to see all of my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineups when you download the app using the link in the description. Real quick before we move on to our over and underrated segment, I want to ask you this question. Who makes more sense, just like not factoring positional value, right? Because I think once you do, the answer to this question is obvious. But if we're just talking about pound for pound, prospect level per what they are at their position, who makes the most sense for a number 6 overall pick, given what has traditionally gone at number 6 overall, the prospect level, in this draft class?
Oh man, it's difficult because there aren't many like blue chip prospects in this class. And I think that's what you're looking for with a top 6 pick. Like to
Are
me,
there any blue chip prospects in this class?
There are 3.
There are 3. Who?
Yeah, it's Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, and Jeremiah Love.
Okay, fair. There's a debate.
Well,
like, can a running back be a blue chip prospect?
I would add Caleb Downs. Well, Caleb Downs is fascinating. Like he's a very interesting player.
Because like I think the conversation with Caleb is interesting because like I think he's a really, really good prospect. I don't know if he's blue chip. Like
I don't think we have the testing numbers to back up blue chip. But I do think when it comes to football intelligence, like he is one of the best football players I have ever scouted. Like he is a supreme ball knower. But I think at 6, like throwing positional value out the window, and considering what the Browns need, I think I would still go for a tackle. Mainly just because like you spent so much money trying to get this unit from poor to at least above average. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and get your left tackle of the future because it's also a lot easier to find like receivers down the board than it is finding starting tackles down the board. If you look at the Super Bowl teams, Charles Cross was a top 10 pick for the Seahawks or a first round draft pick. Abe Lucas was a 3rd rounder, but it took drafting and developing him into that. The Eagles last year, they had Lane Johnson, who was one of the best offensive linemen of all time, but one of the best right tackles of all time.
One of the best offensive line prospects of all time too, because like he was so good in a time where it did not happen. he went like top 5 as a right tackle and just played right tackle. This is before we had all this like, well, you could right tackle is just as important as the left tackle. This is like firmly in the paradigm of like right tackles get paid half the money that left tackles did. And he is the guy who broke that mold, right? Like for every right tackle that's gotten paid, you have Lane Johnson to thank, right? Like he is the guy who broke that mold from right tackles basically being treated like right-handed pitchers in baseball, right? Like it changed after that.
Yeah, and you look at like the Lions, for what the Lions have been over the last few years. They had 2 first-round picks at tackle, Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell. The Ravens, where Todd Monk is coming from, Ronnie Stanley was a first-round pick. Roger Rosengarten was a second-round pick, but they invested, and Tyler Linderbaum was a first-round pick. Like, they invested in the offensive line, and I think if you're going to do that, you have to go and get your left tackle early, because it's just like, I say it all the time. It's really hard to find 6'4" and above, 300 plus pounds and above, like elite movers that aren't like signed to be an NFL offensive lineman already. Because those guys that you find are probably already an offensive lineman for somebody else. It's really hard to find that body type at the NFL level. Whereas like you can find a receiver day 2 or even day 3. We've seen like major success stories coming out of that draft, coming out of those periods for receivers, but it's rare to find that tackle. So I'd say at 6, I say go offensive line.
Yeah, I think also the thing with tackle is it's the most strict position as far as like what those measurables mean to your ability to play, right? You will see a wide receiver who's like 4 or 5 inches under prototypical height sometimes make it every once in a while. I ain't never seen no 6-foot tackle out there in the NFL to making it happen, right? There's no James Harrison of tackles out there, right? Like the most undersized guy you get is like 6'3", maybe 290 pounds.
The only true undersized guy that I've seen is Jason Kelsey, and he was 6'3", like 285 pounds.
And he played center.
Like if size didn't matter, Willie Lampkin would have been a draft pick last year. Like that's how good he was, but he was 5'10". So like it's hard to find great offensive linemen that fit athletic measurables to be NFL caliber offensive linemen. So I say draft the big guys first and draft them early.
Yeah, I think I went through all pro tackles since 2020, and not a single one of them under 33-inch arms. Like you talk about like the strictness to what you need to be successful at that position is absurd. Like it is, and it's only gotten worse, I can imagine, because like Myles Garrett wasn't Myles Garrett in 2020. Like now it's gotten like so crazy where there's Myles, there's Micah. They're putting all these crazy freak linebacker prospects at edge now. Like, yeah, they're just experimenting so much on what they can get away with at edge. And then these guys are fresh like the whole game. And then you're just out there trying to block. It is there are no Cinderella stories at tackle. Like
no.
This is like
the Cinderella story at tackle is Jordan Mailata, and he was 6'8" and 360 pounds and played rugby.
Yeah,
he was a Cinderella story because he did not play football.
Yeah, he wasn't undersized, right? Like he was just like, oh, well, let's see if this big guy can play tackle. Oh my God, he's athletic enough to do it. But yeah, there's like, if I could make a comp here, wide receivers are kind of like college basketball, where like a Cinderella is possible. Like, every once in a while, Davison get to the Final Four at wide receiver, right? Like some little dude out there cooking. A Devonta Smith wins the Heisman, right? Like at 6 foot, 100 and maybe 75 pounds when he was at Alabama. Like, like boxer class, like true welterweight size. And there are no Cinderellas in left tackle world or offensive tackle world. And that's very much like the college football playoff. Like, yeah, you feel good that George Mason got in, or not George Mason, John Madison, was JMU?
James Madison.
James Madison got in there. And it's all a feel-good story until they play Oregon, right? Like, oh yeah, SMU, that's going to be fun. And then they play Penn State. And it's not fun, right? Like the Cinderellas aren't fun in college football because it's just much more demanding of a sport when it comes to what you could do to kind of break through the edges. And that kind of reminds me of tackle, where it's like, you've never seen a 6-foot tackle out there.
I was going to say, we have found historical, like successful outliers being undersized at every position except for tackle. you can't think of an undersized tackle.
You can think of short wide receivers, short quarterbacks.
Those guys can move to guard.
Short running backs, tall running backs, because that one used to be a big taboo for a while. But then Derrick Henry. That's why Derrick Henry, like, it's funny because there are things that we live through that just gonna make you feel old again, JP. There are paradigm shifts that we have lived through that people don't process anymore because they've existed for so long. The idea of Derrick Henry falling in the draft because he's too big. Like people are like, why did Derrick Henry fall in the draft? Oh, he was too big.
Too big.
Yeah, people just thought he was too tall.
I know.
He was too tall and he ran tall. Like, so they didn't want him.
No, just don't ignore the fact that nobody could like touch him.
Yeah, legitimately there was analysis out there. It was like, hey man, if Derrick Henry were 5'11", he'd be a first round pick. Like paradigm shifts nowadays. Now it's like you're 6'3" and you can run fast. Everybody hypes it up. You're the next Derrick Henry. But before Derrick Henry, it was like, well, Brandon Jacobs was all right.
Yeah. Steven Jackson.
Yeah, no, that's a different thing. Steven Jackson was 6'3", 240 pounds, and full of anger. But
6'3", like 240, like that. You don't find those guys very much. And if you do, like, they're moving them to fullback. But now that there's no fullback, you just ask them to play tight end.
That's wild. That's wild, man. But yeah, it's those kind of paradigm shifts where like center, you can get away with being undersized a little bit, but only so much, right? Guard a little bit, right? I think what was it? He used to play for the Cardinals. Big friend of Pat McAfee, like AJ something. You know who I'm talking about though, right? Like I think he was like 5'11" and he played at guard for a long time.
It's not AJ Hawk.
No. It's an offensive lineman for sure. Because I remember his mugshot. Well, it's not mugshot, but his headshot. He had like a big giant cheese on his face, like smile. I forget somebody.
I think I know who you're talking about. Is it? Hold on. I gotta check just to make sure. Is it AQ Shipley?
Yes, AQ Shipley. Yeah, AQ Shipley, undersized. Maybe you could get away with that guard. Tackle, legitimately hard to think of 6'2" tackles.
No, because they're all guards or center.
Bakhtiari was light. Like, right? Was Bakhtiari a little undersized because he was light, like 290, something like that? But it is, these guys all look the same for a reason, right? Like, and that's why they get drafted so high. It's fascinating to me what positions in football have that allowed. Like even edge, you can be a wide variety of body type at edge and be successful. Defensive tackle, you could be Aaron Donald. You could be Vince Wilfork, right? Like and be successful there. Linebacker, I think the reason the body types are so narrow at linebacker just because of the nature of the position, right? Like you kind of get, if you're big but slow, but you can't play safety. Like you just get filtered into linebacker, right? And then corner, you could be a wide variety of sizes at corner, right? Big corners, small corners, you want them in different situations. Safety, the same thing happens there. The only position where there is no variance to what you can be in football is legitimately offensive tackle. Like that is the least, and that's why it's such a hard position to draft. Because there's no secret there, right? Like if you're Bill Belichick and you're trying to get a steal on a wide receiver, you can say, I'm going to get these shifty slot guys and we're going to figure out how to get them open. There's no, I'm going to get this guy with really short arms at tackle and figure out how to scheme him. Like there's just there's no way around it. You know what that is?
That is, I'm going to get this guy who's short arms to tackle and move him to guard or move him to center.
Yeah, that's the only thing you can do is like, hey, he can't play tackle. He has to shift out. And it's the only position we talk about that like that with, right? Like if the tight end's too slow, we're not like, oh, he has to move to to guard, right? Like,
no, if a tight end is too big, they move him to tackle. It's funny because you just move from the end of the line of scrimmage in.
Yeah.
If you're too big to play tight end, you play tackle. If you're too short or too small to play tackle, you move the guard. If you're still too small there, you play center. If you're too small at center, you're coaching.
Yeah, and truly. And the more fascinating part is tackle is also one of those positions where you could be too big for. Shout out Kaden Proctor, right? Like DeJuan Jones, people feel this way about DeJuan Jones right now, right? Like you can absolutely be too big to play. Not Makai Lemon. Makai, he went in that same draft. Becton, right? Had to get moved inside the guard. It is so strict on what you can. It is like legitimately maybe a 20-pound give or take, depending on how old you are. You got to have at least 33-inch arms if you want to be really good. Like you can live and maybe start at like 32 and a half. Like what Lomu, right? He's the guy with the 32-inch arms that he did all those stretches. Fano. Okay, Fano's the one with the 32-inch arms that he did all that funky stretching to try to get to 33, right? Like it is. I saw those. I was like, that's shorter than Brian Parker's arm measurements, and Brian Parker immediately got moved to center. Right by the time we went to East West.
Well, I think with Fano, actually his arm length is actually the same as Will Campbell. Which I mean, for a lot of people, might not selling that. I say it's not saying a lot, but Will Campbell actually was pretty solid this year. He got hurt and then had the worst stretch of his professional career.
JP,
but
he did just have the worst stretch of his professional career. He had the loudest stretch.
It was also incredibly loud.
It was like 5 sacks to Myles Garrett.
5 sacks to Myles Garrett.
I
think he gave up like 2 sacks to Adafe Owe. He gave up like a sack apiece to Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson.
And like
I think he got
most of these games were on national TV too, right? So like everybody saw it.
The problem was it was in the playoffs when like the most like the loudest point of his season.
No, I remember.
And then Myles Garrett had 5 sacks.
Somebody was watching the Myles Garrett sack tape. And they're like, how long was he playing in New England? Oh my God. It's like 10 minutes of the highlight tape.
It's crazy.
It's such a rough stretch for him. I agree with you. I think he did play well outside of that, but I'm like, I wonder what kind of psychological effect being that bad in front of that many people attack. Like whether Will Campbell played well or not, that his coaches might try to pop him up, but every time that man walk around New England, he got to feel like a failure because that's how everybody be looking at him.
Do you want to know a funny stat?
Yes.
Myles Garrett would have finished 3rd on the Patriots in sacks if you just took his one game against the Patriots and just isolated that.
No, like I legitimately think Will Campbell cost us #1 overall pick because the only reason the Browns played those last 2 games as hard as they did was because Myles could get the sack record. And if we don't play those last 2 games hard, we probably lose them. We get the #1 overall pick. like
blaming Will Campbell for the reason you don't have the '1 overall pick.
Yes,
is insane work. but I understand.
5. They lost by like 20 points. Like you beat the Browns by 20. You still like everybody happy on the sideline except for Will. like Drake May got sacked 5 times by one person.
Again, Myles Garrett would have been 3rd on the Patriots in sacks if you just took the 5 sack game and just made that his entire Patriots season.
If you just take Myles Garrett's like 3 weeks, like the Patriots game and I think the Raiders game, and I think there's a game in between there he had 1 sack. I think that's 10 sacks right there.
At one point during the season, he had more sacks by himself than the 2nd and 3rd guy combined.
That's crazy.
Like it is truly one of the greatest single season feats I've ever seen.
Dude, on a team with no offense.
No offense.
Yeah,
They were
like
teams were running the ball because the game was over.
Yeah, a team with no offense. And I think if you look at like the true pass sets that he had in that season, it's like 200 below what like Michael Strahan needed. It's incredible he was able to get that. That's the most impressive pass rush season of all time, right? Like that I don't think that's going to get surpassed because like the nuances of that were fascinating. But Will Campbell played a role in history multiple times, like multiple times. Like you could legitimately say 3 things are true because of Will Campbell this year. Myles Garrett has the sack record. I think we could agree with that. Without those 5 sacks in New England, pretty hard to get to 23. The second thing you can say is Sam Darnold, Super Bowl champion. Will Campbell has a little bit to do with that, right? Like bad game at a bad time. Will Campbell had a little bit to do with that. Did he win MVP? Oh no, Kenneth Walker did. Kenneth Walker won MVP.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And then the third thing you say is Fernando Mendoza going to the Raiders. Will Campbell has something to do with that. Like
you could make the argument that Will Campbell got Odafe Owe $100 million.
You could make that argument. And it's not even an argument you have to argue, JP, because it's true. like Will Campbell might have been the single most consequential player in this draft class, and it's not for anything good. It is like he's such a good player.
Securing generational wealth for others.
Yeah, Odafe Owe, who got traded in the middle of the year, right, as a take 'em deal. Like, we're tired.
We really needed a Alohi Gilman.
Yeah, we're tired of Odafe Owe. Here, take 'em, middle of the season. Got $100 million. Why? Because he played Will Campbell on national TV. Think about it like this. Will Campbell, lucky he played the Browns and the Browns weren't on national TV when he did it.
Yeah.
That's nasty.
Yeah, he got lucky that game was buried in the 1 p.m. slate.
People only realize it happened when they're like, let me see Myles Garrett's 23 sacks that season. Oh my God. How many did he get against the Patriots? And then lucky for him, he had like 5 the next week against the Raiders. So nobody even remembered that. And I think that game was actually televised because it was Shador's first start. But yeah, man, it's been an interesting year. We're going to continue on with our conversation with JP. We're going to talk about over and underrated players. Stay tuned here. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you check out JP's stuff. He's doing articles and he's doing the Pushing the Pile podcast on CBS Sports. Make sure you continue to watch.